Once again, we're back on Lutherans Alive with Pastor Tony Schneck from Bethlehem Lutheran Church in Glenshaw. Tony, again, thank you for taking the time to come in and for sharing with us a bit some thoughts on faith in the home and particularly nurturing our children in the faith. Before the break, we were talking about those Sunday morning times when we're in worship, and you were, of course, encouraging parents to consider allowing their children to experience that time and be a part of it. We talked a little bit about the children's church aspect too. What's the appropriate way to approach suggesting more welcoming practices in a congregation if you happen to be a new parent with young children or a grandparent with a new grandchild in the congregation?
First of all, congregations have to want to welcome children and to be okay with a little bit of the chaos, so to speak, that comes along with ministry with children. I do a lot of youth ministry as well with preteens and teens, and I've often described youth ministry as organized chaos. And in some ways, that's what it is with younger children as well. That we need to be comfortable with a little bit of chaos, and that there might be messes from time to time, and we need to be okay with that too. That we need to have a welcoming heart for our children in worship, and to be understanding that it is difficult because many parents are trying to worship as well as they're caring for their children in the pews, giving them books and toys and Cheerios and whatever it is that
occasional snack, to be sure.
Exactly. That there are all those things that go into life with small children in the church, and we need to be open to that and to help parents as we can. It's our role, I believe, in the church to support parents in their calling. Again, getting back to sort of what we might call a paradigm shift from thinking of church as the place where we talk about God to shifting to the home, the family, or the home altar, so to speak. That faith is nurtured in the home, and that the role of the congregation is to support families in their calling to pass on the faith to children in whatever way that might be, to share the love of Jesus with their children through songs, stories, and all those other things that we talked about before.
And as you described, that part of making the children comfortable or feeling like putting them in a place where they can relate to what's going on Sunday morning, whether it be in the formal worship or the children's church kind of experience. Along with that, of course, is trying to help the parents find a comfort zone or a comfort level, bringing children at a time in their lives when they aren't always controllable or quiet at the moment when you would want them to be. What word would you say to parents if you had the opportunity to counsel them a bit in terms of the attitude that they might have toward their presence and their place as the parent in that kind of a situation?
I would want them to know that they are welcome in the church, in worship, and in the life of the congregation. That to try to put them at ease as best I can, to say it's okay if your child makes a little bit of noise, that we have a place, perhaps, maybe we don't have a cry room, so to speak, at Bethlehem, for example, but we have a room that serves as our meeting room and sort of a lounge. We call it the lounge, and it's off of our narthex, or our gathering space. And the service is the sound is piped in to that room, so that, and there's also a restroom adjacent to it if parents would have need of such a place to take their children for
Not
just a
unheard
little
of
while.
with young children.
Certainly, and we have children's worship bulletins, and again the children's worship opportunity a nursery, a woman who takes care of the nursery each Sunday for us. Those kinds of things that we can offer to make it as comfortable as possible for parents to sort of take that leap of faith and say, we're going to worship.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it.
From the pastor's perspective, being someone who's up front leading, and of course for a lot of that time the focal point, the focus of attention during the service, is it really bothersome to have children out there? Sometimes I think the parents are overly concerned that the pastor might be in the midst of trying to talk over some momentary outburst, be thinking to himself, gee, I wish they weren't here this morning. That's not what I hear you say.
No, not at all. And in fact, many times I don't even notice it. I've had people make comments to me about the noise in church. Oh, wasn't it a little noisy today? And I have to stop and think and say, I don't remember hearing any noise. Sometimes it doesn't even register on my radar and perhaps it's in part because I'm so into what I'm doing in leading the worship service and preaching, but in some ways I think I just kind of don't notice it. So I think I hope parents take some comfort in that too, that it doesn't bother me. And if children are a little loud, I wear a microphone, so I can probably be louder if I need to be to talk over them. So not a problem.
We've spent some time talking about the youngest segment of our population with the early infant stages and phases with our children. In terms of relating the faith in the home with the faith in church life, what's that next transition to from the time of the infant and the young child? What would parents be looking forward to in terms of making that first transition to the next level of learning or spiritual growth?
When children are very small, like take for example my daughter who's only a year and a half old, Cassandra right now is only at the point where maybe I'll sing Jesus Loves Me to her or other songs. And when we have table grace at home, prayers before meals, we all fold our hands. She does too. And she doesn't say too many words yet because of she's still learning the English language. But she does say amen at the end of our prayers before meals.
And they do catch on to the physical cues.
They catch on to the physical cues as well, so she knows how to fold her hands. Now my son, though, by the time children grow a bit, they get to be toddlers and even preschoolers, and now my son beginning kindergarten, he knows a lot of the Bible stories. It's never too early to start sharing those stories, again, with a good Bible storybook. And children relate very well to stories, very well. And I'm amazed at how many stories my son can remember. There could be a Bible story that I read to him perhaps months ago, and he will make reference to it. And I'm amazed. And maybe I'm bragging a little bit as a father, but and I don't say this either as a preacher. You know, I mean, I think sometimes we as pastors in the church, our children can become categorized as preacher's kids. That, oh, well, of course he knows those stories because he's the preacher's kid, and he speaks up and answers the questions during the children's sermon, sometimes even gives the children's sermon because he's the quote-unquote preacher's kid. But I don't share those stories with him or those songs with him because I'm a pastor, but I do it because I'm a Christian parent. And I want him to know that because I want to pass on the faith to him, not because I want him to be a good preacher's kid, but because I want him to be a Christian.
I want to pick up on one example of that kind of storytelling and the value that it has. We have one more break to stop for. We're going to do that now, and then we'll come back and pick that thought up again.